Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Rom, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, follow me on Instagram at Rising Woman Leaders and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. A few weeks ago, while I was preparing for my webinar, The Role of the Priestess in the Modern Age, it became clear to me that there were 5 core wounds that have consistently held back the women that I've been working with from activating their soul gifts and really creating world change. This conversation today was originally aired on the Vital Mother podcast with Jillian Anderson. She's been interviewed twice on Rising Woman Leaders and is an amazing woman. You can definitely listen to those conversations and check out her new podcast, The Vital Mother, which is so great and full of information, especially for women that are already mothers or thinking about planning to be mothers at some point in their life. What came through in our conversation felt so powerful that I wanted it to reach more women and decided to share it with you here today on Rising Woman Leaders. The Rising Woman Leaders Priestess Initiation Program is now open for enrollment and spaces are already filling up. This is a feminine leadership initiation, a high priestess sisterhood, and women's circle facilitator training program. It's 10 months long, primarily held online, but does include a 4-day closing retreat in Sonoma County, California. Join us on a path of devotion, beauty, and service as we go through a series of initiation gateways to claim your role as a priestess. We'll join together to reveal a deeper meaning of existence and anchor into our living as an embodiment of love to serve our planet and future generations. We'll be exploring themes of femininity, devotion, wildness, compassion, boundaries, prosperity, service, love, vision, and leadership. Some highlights of the course curriculum includes having 7 private healing sessions with me, where we can look at womb healing, leadership skills, how to step more fully into your dreams, your goals through mentorship. We'll have group calls every month and training modules where we'll explore energetic clearing, the wheel of the year, astrological foundations, womb healing, forgiveness, stepping into the beauty way, creating a temple of your body, your home, fertility, sensuality, love, intimacy, creating a daily sadhana practice, deepening your connection with the dream world, the power of prayer, healing your relationship to money, opening up to receive more deeply, feminine abundance and magnetism. We'll be stepping into the themes of sacred mission and activating your voice, refining your contribution in the world, as well as learning how to facilitate women's circles. We'll have time for exploring release and renewal, creativity, stepping into your soul essence, and writing your vows to claim your role as a priestess. If you're interested in the Rising Woman Leaders Priestess Initiation, all the details are up at risingwomanleaders.com on our website. I hope you enjoy today's show.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Vital Mother podcast. I am so excited to have a very special guest here today for you. And I am here with Meredith Rom. Meredith Rom. Hi. Yay. Meredith is a friend of mine and is such a light in this world. And this conversation is sure to bring you such valuable insights around so many things, but really I feel Meredith is a light for women who want to make a difference and want to make an impact and live their, I'll say, dharma. I'll say purpose. I'll say, contribution, highest contribution. So officially, Meredith Rom is a yoga teacher, author, women's leadership coach, and host of the Rising Women Leaders podcast. She helps feminine leaders and entrepreneurs step into the power of their voice to elevate their income and impact. Her mission is to see women shining at their brightest, owning their worth, and using their voice to be a beacon of light for others to awaken in this world. After graduating from NYU, she followed her intuition to Northern California, where she now teaches yoga and mentors women to rise in courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. You can learn more about Meredith at www.meredithrom.com and on Instagram at Rising Women Leaders. And Meredith, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jillian. I'm so happy to be here. Usually I'm the one interviewing. So.
Yes, I know. It's just so beautiful, and I'm excited to see where our conversation goes. For the listeners, to give a little background, I met Meredith on Instagram. Meredith, did I meet you? Did we meet on Instagram?
I think so. Yes, I remember you were sharing your jade egg books. I think, were you Earth Body Mama? Something different.
Oh, yeah,
right?
That's going way back. Yeah. Yeah, so Meredith popped out, I guess, as this happens when you are, a healer on Instagram. And I feel like the world of feminine embodiment, it's still very micro and small compared to what, I feel like there are so many women that are so connected in that world, and we all need to be out there, speaking even louder. But I found Meredith, and she inspired me immediately, especially as an aspiring author. And it wasn't long after, oh, Meredith, you were running your Kickstarter campaign, and it was so beautifully done with the video for, your book, Just Be. And so I became a supporter. That happened. I got an early copy. And for everybody listening, Meredith's book, Just Be, is so well written. You will read it in one or two sittings. It's just impossible to put down. So yeah, that's how it happened. So I found Meredith, so inspired by her. I said, who is this woman who's just writing this book? And look at her. And this is so well done. And then it rolled into a relationship from there where, we stayed in touch, and then I ended up at Meredith Rom's wedding, which was another very beautiful and very well done. I'm going to say well done, but just I soaked in every single moment of your wedding, Meredith, and it was one of the most beautiful, beautiful ceremonies I've ever been to in my life, maybe the most. Anyway, that's some backstory for our listeners, but
yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you got to be there.
Yeah.
So that weekend was it's almost like a blur because it's just so much at once. I forget all the people that were there and that came from so many different places.
Yes, I think that was one of the most beautiful things, actually, was seeing how many people and how many really bright individuals were there to support you. And I just felt, wow, this woman is a powerhouse. I've always known that about you, but I just felt your power that day and was like, this woman is making a difference in so many lives. And look at these beautiful relationships that she's cultivated. And I was so moved by all of it. And so yay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yay. So let's dive in. So tell me and tell the listeners a little bit about the work that you do with women. Tell us how you, maybe how you got started with this work, and then you can transition into what is most alive about your work for you right now.
Mhm. Yeah, where to start? My work with women now has a lot to do with healing old patterns, core limiting beliefs, things that are holding us back from really stepping into our power. And I've found a relationship between healing old memories and wounds and just difficult situations that have made us feel small or held back, and how that really relates to just sharing our creative gifts in the world. So, a lot of my work is helping women to step more deeply into their soul purpose and to be teachers and healers and leaders and guides, and doing some of that foundational, deeper healing work that can help them feel really prepared for that. And I started off as, well, first a yoga teacher, and eventually was like, well, I don't know if I can earn all of my income through this, and I don't really want a part-time job. So let me see what else I can do. And I was actually led to a nutrition school, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and was a health coach for a while, and pretty quickly discovered that when we're looking at our health and maybe a symptom or a challenge that's coming up, there's usually so many different aspects that need to be addressed and looked at. And I loved helping people with their lifestyle and their career and their relationships, and looking in their spirituality and all the different facets that make us feel fully alive and fulfilled. And often when we look at all of those areas, maybe one of those symptoms can start to clear up. I also found a lot in my own journey, just things that were able to be healed both emotionally and physically from stepping up and sharing more of myself. Like, a big journey on my path has just been trusting in my voice and trusting that what I have to say matters and is worthy, and being willing to be the center of attention sometimes, to activate others and to support others in making shifts. So my work does take a lot of different facets from I'm a certified EFT practitioner and also work with people in trauma healing. But then I also help people with just really balancing the feminine and the masculine in their life. And what does it look like to take aligned action and to have structure and to move forward on the things that they're dreaming, rather than just sitting and waiting and not knowing how to move ahead. So that's kind of a picture. I can definitely elaborate anywhere if you have any other questions.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, I actually do have a question. I'm wondering if you feel or find that, do you find that women are healing in your space through taking the action and then backtracking to look at what their maybe their wounds are, or their maybe traumas coming up, or triggers, showing them where trauma might be? Do you find that there, or do you find that taking healing, doing the healing work first and then taking action is more of a theme in your space?
Yeah, I think it's both, because sometimes women come to me and they know exactly what's holding them back. And it's something like they have that awareness, and they know that maybe something's happened in their past, or they've tried putting themselves out there and they come up against blocks around sharing themselves or feeling like their voice matters, or maybe they've had abuse in their childhood or something like that. But sometimes I'm working with people and they get into unfamiliar territory, and that's when all the alarm bells go off, and they didn't even realize like that something was feeling activated here. And sometimes they don't have any idea where it came from. And so then we can do some of that deeper work and working with the subconscious and start to uncover what might be here. But something I can tell you is that pretty much any time, whether we've had trauma or not, like stepping into unfamiliar territory can be really scary. And a lot of doubt comes up, a lot of fear, a lot of wanting to self-sabotage and throw it all away. And that's when it really helps to have mentors, guidance, loving friends, people who are going to encourage you and say, you got this, you can move forward through this. But I found too that when I was only working as a coach and just helping people like with taking action steps and working towards their goals, sometimes it could be re-traumatizing, or sometimes it could be like just too much on our nervous system of like actually taking those steps. And I found bringing in that more emotional healing work allowed for, and also womb healing work, which I've been doing more of now, it allowed for the space to move ahead, to come from a place of excitement and to genuinely feel like, I got this, I'm supported. So often I'll check in with clients like from 0 to 10, 10 being like the most scared, I can't do this, I suck, all the negative voices that come up, and 0 being like, no problem, I got this. And I might be using one of my different modalities. One of them often is EFT. And so often by the end of the session, it's like, no, they're like, I got this. I'm going to move ahead. I feel good. I know what my action steps are, and I'm excited. So that's really cool to see. It comes in both forms.
Oh, it's so beautiful just thinking about it, Meredith, because it's like we are out here oftentimes as entrepreneurs and creatives just sitting behind our computer doing these things, and it just listening to you speak, I'm like, just having like feeling you being in a woman's corner just feels so impactful and so powerful. And it just made me think like we think we can do these things alone, and a lot of the time we need reflection from others or just a container to just kind of bring all our stuff to like fall apart in and be honest and open with ourselves of like, yeah, this is really scary. And, I want to talk about, you mentioned womb healing work. And before we hopped on the call, you had mentioned something about the 5 wounds of the priestess. So tell me more about the womb healing work you've been doing, and maybe we can transition right into those 5 wounds if you feel called.
Yes. So one of the things I've been thinking a lot about right now is, what is the role of the priestess in the modern age? What even is a priestess? And it's a word that kind of gets thrown around. And what does that actually mean? And I'm going to be leading a webinar about this. So I've just kind of been sitting with it and tuning in. And I feel like first, a woman who feels called to that word, often she has walked many lifetimes as a priestess. And that can take many forms, but one being she is a vessel for the divine, and someone who is first and foremost here to serve, to really be here to guide and support planetary awakening. And the priestess is one who really is in communion with the divine and brings that into form. What the insight and the guidance and the wisdom that she receives, someone who can be a vessel and to bring that into form. And also she's a frequency, just a simple holder of a frequency for the sacred feminine to be restored on this planet. And so I've been just exploring more about what is this, the priestess, and also like what holds us back. So I'm going to share those five wounds that I just was writing about this morning. And I think they'll be really helpful for people and how to move beyond them. But just to touch a little on the womb healing work I've been doing. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I started leading a program called the Sovereign Circle, and it's for a group of about 12 women, and we go through a journey over the course of 9 months. And when I went through my first certification for EFT and another modality called matrix reimprinting, which is where when we land on a trauma, we actually go back into the memory and use tapping. So if you're not sure what tapping is, it's a somatic healing modality where we use tapping on meridian points to help downregulate the amygdala and the fight or flight response in order to just shift beliefs and really difficult moments in time that we've had in our past and start to create a new belief and a new memory and a new, like our memories are really, they're a picture that are associated with a belief, a feeling. There's usually a sense of what the sights, the sounds, the colors were in that moment. And so when I was trained in this modality and I was doing private work with these women, it became apparent that about 8 of the 12 women I was working with at the time had had some form of womb trauma, sexual abuse, some even childhood sexual abuse, really difficult like things in their lives. And I was like, oh, of course, I was guided to work with these women. And here I am learning those modalities. And I just started diving right in. And what I found was as I was supporting them in these healing these deeper rooted traumas and beliefs that are formed. So say we have a trauma when we're a child, usually we create a belief, something like, I don't matter, I don't have a voice, I'm not allowed to speak up, I'm not enough, I'm unworthy. Like those can be formed at a really young age and then start to perpetuate in our daily life as if that trauma is still happening. And it's almost like in another dimension it is, because it's never been really addressed, looked at, and healed. And so with this work, as I've been helping people release and reframe these memories and using tapping and the somatic modality and giving them space to fully feel unfelt emotions and to let it go, they started feeling so like a weight had been lifted and moving ahead. And over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, as this was just something I was kind of doing naturally, it came to me, women who had had abortions, women who had had miscarriages, women who had traumatic birth experiences of birthing their children. I was using these modalities in these forms and seeing like how deeply impactful. So just a few months ago, I made it more public and announced like, hey, this is one of the things that I do. And if there is anyone out there who needs this, I would love to be of support. And one of the interesting things, I just got a testimonial from a woman who wrote to me yesterday. She was sharing how like she had not been able to put her website out for years. She was not able to move forward on creative projects. She wasn't able to, she was just constantly questioning whether she was worthy of this or this is something she could really do. And after doing our work, which was looking at a lot around shame and a lot around some repression and difficult things that happened in her childhood around sexuality, it was like suddenly she felt confident. And she released that website and she started moving ahead on these creative projects. I have another woman that I was just working with who was having trouble conceiving, and she had been with her partner for a long time. She had childhood sexual abuse, and after the first session, one session, she got pregnant. And it was just like, whoa. And she said things to me like, I am making love with my husband now and being fully present. Like for the first time, I'm being fully present in that space. Or I'm able to look people in the eye now and feel like that sense of worth or that sense of confidence deeper within. So that's just naturally kind of came to me. It wasn't necessarily something I really sought out, but that's really what the womb healing work that I've been doing with women. So specifically, if there are women out there listening who, feel like, wow, actually, I have had, an abortion or a miscarriage that feels unresolved, or maybe there was something about giving birth to their child that felt difficult, or their power was taken away, or any of the other things, sexual, assault, or childhood sexual abuse. Those are all things that I've started to do. And it's been interesting that like the healing can happen so fast in this space. It's like because we're working with the inner child and the tapping and getting to the root of what is the core belief and the core wound, so much is able to shift. They don't need to operate from that belief that was formed at that time. So, and boundaries, that's another big piece of just what women are able to step more fully into when they feel like, okay, I'm healing and I'm stepping forward into my sacred work and my relationships. So that's, anything you want to share before I move on?
Yeah, Meredith, it's amazing. And I just feel so inspired. And so I feel emotional when I heard you speak on, the woman who is present with her partner now. And, it's just there's so much healing available to us. And I really love what you said about it can be quick, or it can be, things can shift quickly. And I think that sometimes if anyone listening is like me, we think we have to go through this long heroine's journey of healing. And, before Meredith and I hopped on the call, actually, Meredith asked me about my own healing in my body with my gallbladder, which I've written about. And it's so interesting. It's like we can be prescribed to this idea that it takes a long time and that it's going to be hard and that we have to keep cycling through. And then so hearing you speak, it's like, oh yeah, things can shift quickly. Especially when you're working with someone who is holding a powerful intention for you and holding a safe container, and who, can facilitate this kind of work, and just feel refreshed hearing that. So, so beliefs, you said beliefs can be formed. Another thing you said that I wrote down actually is, you said that sometimes this trauma or these things it's as if they're happening in another dimension, and it is. Mm-hmm. And that really jumped out at me. And so I had to write it down.
There's more I could say about that. So when we have a trauma, there's usually a sense of threat, helplessness, isolation, and shock. And like when all of those come together, often we freeze. And a part of our consciousness actually gets frozen in that moment in time and can't leave. And so it's like we go on and try to live our lives, but there's still this part of our consciousness. In our modality, we actually call it an echo. It's like a part of our inner child, or something that's actually living in this other dimension in the moment of trauma that still exists in the present day. And that's why whatever core belief was formed in that frozen moment is something that we're operating on in the present reality. And the reason that we tend to welcome more and more of the same trigger, like the same pattern, the same thing that keeps coming up again and again, of I keep attracting this kind of partner, or, men keep treating me this way, or I keep, struggling to speak in front of a group of people when I try to get up and speak. It's because there's a trauma, that a part of our consciousness that is wanting to be healed, and our subconscious is creating a similar scenario again and again to say hey, look at me, something wants to be healed, let's look at this. But often what happens is we don't have the tools or resources in order to really get to the root, and we reinforce the same trauma again and again and again. And then we have more and more evidence for why this thing always happens to me. And that victim voice that can come up. And so often getting to the root of it, where did this begin? What was the first time I felt this way? Then it can start to free up all of those moments in time that happened afterwards.
Meredith, I think I need to be in the sovereign circle next time. I think I'm having insights and revelations right now, and I'm writing notes.
Yeah. And actually I've been guided that the sovereign circle is actually shifting and changing form. And what I'm feeling called to lead next is, it's similar format with the one-on-one healing work and all of that, but it's a priestess initiation program. And it's, so it will be longer term, 10 months long with a closing retreat, but everyone will have also more skill and facilitation skills. They'll learn deeper about EFT and be able to bring that into their life. But that feels like, just a side note of what I'm being guided to for this year.
Ooh, I can feel that, the energy of it already. And I can't wait to see that unfold. Do you want to transition with even, saying priestess initiation? Do you want to share some of these 5 wounds that prevent a priestess from doing her work or being her frequency?
Yes. Yeah. So the first wound and what can really hold us back is the fear of being seen. And I think this goes back to women who walked this earth over the last centuries. I think a lot of Mary Magdalene, because she is an archetype, a woman who actually did walk on this earth at the time of Jesus, who was a very powerful woman and a healer and a leader. And yet at the time when she was alive 2,000 years ago, it was not actually safe for her to be seen and to speak out. And if she did, she could very well be stoned or attacked or killed. And that's actually what happened to a lot of women who were coming out as healers or witches or powerful women. They would be suppressed. And it was very real that was something that happened. I mean, I've been thinking about this in our current age. It's still going on, thinking about the last 100 years. Not even just women. I mean, Martin Luther King Day, I was really reflecting on someone who was standing up and speaking out and going against the grain of the mainstream was literally shot and killed. And so this is a very deep, it actually like lives in our cells. It lives in our DNA, this fear of speaking up, this fear of being seen. If I'm saying anything that's against the grain or against the norm, what could happen to me? And it can actually feel like a visceral in the body experience of like, oh my God, I'm about to make this Instagram post and what's going to happen? Am I going to get called out or attacked? That's really real. And of course, like we don't actually have necessarily the same threat that was happening many years ago. And probably that won't happen for making an Instagram post, but it can still be a really visceral experience in our body. And so I think one of the healing balms for this one, the fear of being seen, is having sisterhood and having support of like-minded people who feel like these people have my back. It can feel a whole lot safer to step forward and to take a stand on something when there is a sense of support, and that if I do get called out or if something bad does happen, I can fall back on this support of these other women who are here for me. And then, of course, the EFT work, the matrix work that I do with women of healing imprints around being seen. And maybe there were moments in time when you got up to speak and someone made fun of you, or you stumbled over your words, or something difficult happened. So that's really good to look at and to heal in order to feel safe. And then one other healing balm I can think of is just like practicing in safe spaces. So if you're feeling called to lead workshops, or feeling called to give talks, or to share your voice, or to be even on video, or to do a Facebook Live, or any of it, it really just takes practice. It's uncomfortable at first, and having safe spaces where we can practice, where especially with other women who are going to love you no matter what, like that's so healing, and we can take steps forward.
Beautiful. Yeah, it really is the support of women who can hold you when you're not sure of yourself, and until you find that ground again from within yourself is everything. And thank you for that one. It's interesting, the fear of being seen, and I'm thinking about, for the woman who's out there who is like pushing herself to be seen, and she's like trying to kind of push her way through, but she's coming up against, this, I don't know. It's interesting because it's so individual, right? It's like everyone handles it differently. Like I can see there's women who go into like avoidance and resistance and procrastination, like that woman you mentioned earlier, who wanted to get her website out, but just it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. And then there are probably women or people who are taking steps, but then kind of like not relapsing, but going into a spiral after they put themselves out there. Mm-hmm. And so these are really good tips for someone on anywhere on that scale. Beautiful. Tell us the second wound of the priestess that you have.
So it's the fear of being judged, and even myself feeling like, okay, I'm going to claim the word priestess and like say that this is something I am or do. I actually had a lot of fear come up with that. Even still, even now, just thinking when I was going to put out this webinar, it was like, there can be a lot of stigma around it and like what this is, and people don't understand, or like just being a healer, being different, or being spiritual. There have been a lot of times where people have been ostracized for that. And I mean, think back to even just high school and wanting to fit in and wanting to have friends, and it can be so different, so painful to not have that and to feel like, wow, I feel different and I'm doing something that's maybe a little outside the status quo. So that the fear of being judged, and some of the healing balm that I would recommend for that. I like to work with archetypes and goddesses, that two of them being Kali and Sekhmet. So Kali is this fierce energy. She's like the fire breathing, from her mouth, and just here with a sword and to cut away all the BS and to just really call us back into our power. And Sekhmet as well, she's an Egyptian goddess who's the lioness goddess. And she is here to really, really help us have boundaries and just like not give an F what other people think of us, and just like to really stand in our power and our brightness and our beauty and not let others pull us down. So I would even just like begin to work with those archetypes and maybe call upon them in times when we're feeling fear of judgment or being afraid. For me, like activating the inner fire. And I can remember a time when I was really afraid of being judged for just being who I am with my partner's family. And like, it was just like tiptoeing around and like, can I really be myself? And I had this one really powerful moment of like, I was on a run with my partner and I kind of activated that Kali energy inside of me. And I was just like, I don't care anymore. I'm not going to like move my whole life around or try to be someone different because of this. And that can be really good, like not giving an F what other people think, and using that energy to actually just move ahead.
I love it. This is so exciting to me. I'm like, yes. And how many women at these, and I'm thinking of your wedding, of course, because it was an embodiment of that. Like you were you, like purely, deeply you. And I think Marin was there, one of your teachers, your mentors, if that's her name, Marin, right?
Yes.
And she was doing the 4 directions, and you and Michael were like, the way you spoke to one another and the words you spoke, like there was no doubt about it that y'all were both deeply connected to God in that moment. And there was no hiding who you were. And it was like, and there's everyone there. And so I know that your commitment to being who you are and not giving enough what people think is real, and it was felt for me, and being there and witnessing, and I want this energy for every woman. I'm like, yeah, because it's not worth it to waste any time shrinking or contorting is the word that I'll use for it, to meet people where they're at, especially when you feel that the word priestess is a word that it's like, hold that frequency. No, hold that frequency. And there's going to be 1,000 reasons why, or 1,000 invitations to come down off of that frequency. And there's going to be 1,000, invitations to meet people where they're at and to come to their level. And it's like, no, hold it, So I could feel that. And I love that you are speaking to that. So.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. And the wedding was definitely an initiation into that. And it's beautiful when we claim it and just, stop caring so much.
Love it. Cool. So take us into the third.
Okay. So number 3 is the fear of being alone and isolation. So this is really has happened in our current society. So many of us are in our boxes, in our homes, kind of alone, doing our work. And that's not really how it's meant to be. And I think it's why so many of us are sad and depressed and feel stuck, is because we feel alone. And so what the invitation of the feminine is coming back into the collective and collaboration, and really that deepening of like, we're meant to be together, we're meant to work together, we're meant to support each other. And it can feel so painful doing it on our own in our house, like trying to work towards these big goals or financial goals or supporting a family and all the things that can feel really lonely. So the healing balm for this one is creating community. And so a big part of the Priestess initiation program I'm going to be leading is like, how do I lead in-person women's circles in my town, in my community, bring people together and make that happen? And that's been a personal commitment in my own work, is having in-person connection, teaching yoga, holding women's circles, holding sound healings, even though it's not necessarily the thing that will bring in the most income for my business. It's like a personal commitment around being physically present with people and also collaboration and working together. So it's just, so important to be, especially for women that do a lot of their work online. It's like, how can I balance that with community and connection?
Yeah, it's so beautiful, Meredith, because, and I can say in my own personal life, I feel I've spent most of my entrepreneurial journey alone. And one of my blocks to in-person community was I felt like I had to be further along before I could receive that. And I don't know why. I don't know where this idea came from, but it was like, okay, like I need to have my house together. I need to like have like everything to host, and I need to just be further along. And I just, there was one of those blocks. And then another block was I felt like I was moving. And I think I had, hesitation to rooting down in the area that I was in. And I think it's one of the things, with this time where we can fly anywhere and be anywhere and, and we're all connecting online. It's almost like it's a different kind of it's easier to avoid dropping in to our local community, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can attest because once I started to like allow myself to experience community and to create community, I felt like this richness,
Yes.
And I love that one so much.
Yes. And I'll also just share for women that are at the moment maybe don't have in-person community, or it might take time to build that, or in some circumstances it doesn't seem like it could happen. Like definitely utilizing the online resources and having community online and starting there and having virtual circles or participating in programs and things like that are like can be super nourishing. So I definitely advocate for both.
Yeah, and it can lead to getting invited to your new friend's wedding. And all of these
Totally.
things. Yeah, it's really beautiful when you do connect with people online and then you find yourself in person and you're like, wow, that's a very cool moment in so many ways too. So,
Yes.
cool. So take
Yeah.
us to, what are we at? Number
We're at
4?
number 4. Yeah.
Okay.
So the fear of being unworthy or not enough. And this is something that I think a lot of women carry and prevents them from just stepping out and sharing and helping people and being in their dharma, sharing their soul gifts, all of it. And it also is something that keeps women really talking down on their bodies and not being loving to themselves physically. So a lot of my work, especially this year with this Priestess program, is like, how do we dismantle the patriarchy from within ourselves? And capitalist society and the patriarchy, all of it, literally want us to not like our bodies and to feel unworthy, because then we will need to buy things and we will always need more and we will need to go shopping and we'll need to get that next thing. They thrive on us feeling like we're not enough. And so that in itself, I think, can sometimes be enough to just be like, oh my God, I do not want to subscribe to this model of like literally us just feeling bad about ourselves, and to dismantle that from within and to love ourselves. Like that's a radical act, to love ourselves and to love our bodies, and to say that we actually don't need those material things on the outside to make us more enough. So that's a deep one to look at. And I was reflecting at in a dear friend who was on a stage at a speaking event and was sending me pictures and was like, had done this incredible thing, is speaking in front of like 800 people or something for climate justice, and literally like the first thing she said is, oh, I think I look fat. And I was just like, that is exactly what the patriarchy wants you to think about yourself, so that you drain your energy and think that you need more and other things, instead of really recognizing the incredible work that you're doing and how much you're making a difference. And what if all the energy that we've been draining from hating ourselves was actually put into meditation or activism or our sacred work and making a difference? How much would we be able to shift? So that's a big one. And some healing balms for this is letting the voices come to light in a safe space. I think releasing the shame around what might be cycling in our own heads, and actually having a guide or a friend or a mentor that we can share about it with, and then have our greatness be reflected back to us and constantly reminded of how great we are, and encouragement, and just like, you can do this and you are doing this and this is amazing. That can do so much to help us move ahead, and in those times when we feel scared or that we're not enough.
Yes, thank you. I just saw her, on that stage as you were speaking, and was like, gosh, like I want her to enjoy her moment and her embodiment of that power. And, it's interesting because I feel like the voice of like the fear of being unworthy or not enough, or that energy in a woman's life, oftentimes it shows up as like, it's kind of sneaky sometimes. It's like, for me, it comes up as like, you're not there yet, or you're not there yet, or I don't know. It's kind of wears a mask of like, you should be further along. Like, you should be here. You should be there. You should, like, maybe her voice was like, you should be at a lower weight, or you should be. And it's like, it can be sneaky. It can be sneaky, that unworthy stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the shoulds.
Yeah.
They sneak up on us.
Yeah. Okay. So let's roll into number 5.
Yeah, the last one. So this one, we can see it as a wound, but I also see it as a superpower, and it's being highly sensitive. So it can I know it's something that holds a lot of women back, of just feeling like, I'm feeling so much. I'm empathic. I'm feeling the weight of the world. I am in so much grief. I don't know how to move ahead. I can't move forward at all because there's so much to feel, even just right here. And that is definitely holds people back and can be a real challenge. But it's also such a gift to be that highly sensitive, and especially when you start to step into more of this priestess embodiment and that work of we need to be sensitive to receive messages from the divine. We have so much information coming at us in all directions all the time, and it can be overwhelming and overloading. But to like really tune in and to be quiet and to listen, it requires that sense of sensitivity and to be able to receive messages in our dreams and all of that. So Healing Balm, one, just seeing it as a superpower, but also energetic clearing practices. And there are different things that I do throughout the day that are really helpful and simple. As simple as sending a grounding cord, like from your root to your sacral chakra, and just imagining grounding into the earth, maybe even clearing some negative energy down through the cord into the center of the earth and allow it to be transmuted. I have practices around just calling your energy back, and that can look like just imagining a sun above your head and just simply saying, imagining that there's a sun and that your name is in the sun and there's a magnet in the sun. And this is a practice I learned from a book that was called You Are Psychic. And it's just say, I call my energy back, and imagine the sun getting bigger and bigger, and your energy coming from all the people, places, things that your energy got left behind, and your sun just getting so big. And then just imagining putting a little hole in the top of the head and the bottom of the sun, and then filling yourself back up with your own energy, that golden light. And when it gets to the top, even spilling out into your aura. There are many different meditation, kind of energetic hygiene practices of really coming back to your center. Sometimes I imagine a golden egg, even putting boundary colors around that, like royal blue is a color of boundary, that in a sense of protection. The violet flame, you can even put around that. That is something that can purify negative energies that might be coming at you. And so even just doing like these simple clearings can make such a difference. Sometimes I do a really simple one, which is basically just when I clap my hands 3 times, I declare any energy that's not mine will leave me. Any energy that is mine that I may have lost will return to me. And then just take a pause. And then, just moving on into your day. Something as simple as that can start to call your energy back and create energetic containment.
I feel like everybody listening needs to employ some of these, or just take the reminder if they have their own practices to continuously utilize them during the day, because it's so easy as a sensitive person to be so overstimulated right now. I mean, it's like, even just for me, if I scroll on Instagram or Facebook for like 30 seconds too long, I can feel so overwhelmed and frazzled is the word. Like and then having these, in your back pocket where you're like, okay, let me come back to myself, put the phone down, close the computer, come back to myself. What is really going on here? And I know personally, sometimes I don't catch myself for a couple hours where I'm like, what's happening? I don't feel right. I don't know. And then I'm like, oh, I need to move my body, or, oh, I'm picked up something, like something is been picked up. A lot of the times you don't know what it is, right? It's just energy. It's everywhere. So yeah, this is so helpful. I loved the sun. I haven't heard that one. And I love that you referenced the book, and I wrote it down because that sounds like a really interesting book. Mm-hmm. And, Beautiful. Well, these five, 5 wounds of the priestess. I know this is going to be really helpful for women, who are looking to really be an embodiment of that frequency, as you mentioned in the beginning, and really hold that vibration. And I feel like the time is now, everyone listening, like, your power on a deep level. It's now, like, be at that frequency and stay connected to that woman who you are, who has change to make and change to bring by being yourself and being connected to yourself, as Meredith has said. Meredith, I'm trying to think if there's a question that I have for you to wrap. And I think the question I want to ask you is, if there's, and this is kind of a mother question, but if there's any kind of insight or wisdom or characteristic or, powerful, I'm not sure what the word is, but powerful, I want to say juice, or powerful pattern or powerful thing you've gained from your mother or being connected to the mother, what would that be?
Yeah. Tune into that for a moment. Yeah, so I'll just share a little about my mother, and she's hopefully later this month going to be visiting me on her own, which is a big deal because she's afraid of flying on her own. But I love my mom a lot, and I'd say a gift that she has passed on to me is her. I think her connection to source, and like it actually comes out in a very different way. So there's that, like the connection to the divine in her own way. My mom's a painter, an artist, and the way that she has showed up to her craft has been really incredible. She growing up, like she would paint like 3 days a week. Like, I don't know if you've ever read the book The War of Art, but a lot can come up around our creativity. And when I think of my mom, and it's both like her connection to spirit guidance of just like, she wouldn't call it that, but I think her inspiration from her paintings definitely come from something that's greater than just the tangible world. And that her dedication to actually make that into form. And as I'm reflecting on that, I'm like, oh, wow, my mom has been priestessing, and I've never even thought of it that way. She's bringing the formless into form, and through her art. And I think both like the willingness to show up and create the space for that to actually happen, and her dedication to devoting her time to that craft and seeing that as a valid contribution in this world. Like, one of the pillars or ideas that I think is the role of a priestess in this time is actually to create and witness beauty. And so much in our society, we don't necessarily see that as like a valid form of contribution or a valid form of giving back in the world. But actually, like, it's the feminine. It's so deeply important and necessary. And right now I'm really called to like conservation around the honeybees. And I think about the honeybees as like, they need the flowers to exist, and they're like pollinating all of our food supply, and we need them to survive. And like the honeybees need the flowers need the honeybees, and the flowers are just here to create beauty. It's like it's so necessary in our world, and something with the out of balance place that we've really been with the masculine and overlooking a lot of the qualities of the feminine. That's so important. So finding the balance and the union of like witnessing, creating beauty, receiving guidance, and also how can I show up and take the space for myself to create some structure, some of that masculine, to actually tangibly make shifts or create something that can add value in our world.
Meredith, I'm so excited and in tears about your mom, because she is an embodiment of, the heart of, why I started this podcast. And it's that we can be mothers and creatives at the same time. And hearing that she painted 3 days a week, and she was dedicated and devoted. And I mean, you are, such a wonderful person who is, walking her path so powerfully. And I just feel like it's my hope as a mother that, as I devote myself to my creativity, that it benefits my children, that it doesn't take away from them. And so it's just such a beautiful, beautiful way to wrap, because here we are. And so where is your favorite place to hang online? Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, definitely Instagram, Rising Woman Leaders. I love sharing with people over there. And then the podcast, Rising Woman Leaders. So that's, either on my website, meredithrom.com, or simply risingwomanleaders.com. You can find the podcast. So those would be the places, if you want more, look that up. I'm doing this webinar next week. I'm going to be sharing more about the role of the priestess in the modern age. So I imagine that replay will be available when this comes out. So you can sign up to listen to that. And I think that's it. If anyone feels called to the womb healing work or to the priestess program, definitely reach out. I even was tuning in before this call and was wanting to offer like a special coupon to your listeners. If anyone wants to do a womb healing session, can be just a single session or a package of 3. And I'm going to send you an email with like details on that coupon and how they can utilize it.
Beautiful, Meredith. Thank you so much. I can sense that there are women who have experienced birth trauma who are listening. And I can also sense that there are women who have had abortions and other experiences who are listening, who would greatly benefit from some womb healing work with you. So thank you so much for being you, first of all. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's truly an honor to have spent this time with you. And I'm so inspired. So everybody listening, thank you so much. Be sure to connect with Meredith and enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, and if this episode was moving for you, powerful for you, and, provided deep insight for you, tag a friend, screenshot the episode, share it on Instagram. You can tag a friend, or you can privately send it to a friend via messaging. But do share it, and because the more women who are listening, the better. So, okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. We would love to hear what you think. Take a moment to hop on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be so grateful to receive it. Until next time, namaste.